Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. How you doing today? I am a little cold because my cat wanted to talk to the birds in my office. It's got a little window kind of on the side. He jumps up there and he talks to the birds. And of course, legitimately, the moment I start talking, he jumps down from the window. He is now walking out of the room. And now I'm going to be freezing because it's 51 degrees outside and my window is open. The life of a pet owner. By the way, you can follow him on Instagram at @DDexterKitty. You can follow my dog, Ollie, at Ollie Aussie Dog on Instagram. Had to get up this morning at 6:20 to walk the dog in the dark. Had to help out the lady. She's got a bunch of business meetings and stuff in the morning. So I was doing, I'm in the evening. I did morning duty today. Anyone else out there? I almost was tempted to wear my beanie because I've been up since 6:20 and it's 44 degrees when I went outside, which is not terrible. I know a lot of you in the world, especially in the United States back east, worse weather than that. But I'm a California softie. So 44 degrees in the dark is a lot for me. Anyway, I've been up for a while. I even got I got a latte, a chai latte, which is not a coffee, but I got a chai latte this morning. I just broke all the rules today. So it's a Friday. We're just getting rogue here, getting ready for the start of February. I'm just doing crazy things. Who the hell knows what might happen over the next hour? I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all those places at the Ray Flowers. So check me out there. Always go to FantasyGuru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, get signed up for any of our products. You can find me on Wednesdays on the Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio with Jeff Manns. That show is Monday through Friday from 3 to 6. I'm on with him Wednesdays. I'm not here on Wednesdays. Justin Fensterman is here Wednesdays. I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. By the way, if you click the subscribe tab in the top right corner at FantasyGuru.com, Jeff Manns keeps mentioning it on his show, so I'll mention it here. Jeff keeps mentioning it. I'm going to keep doing it too. As of right now, the all-in VIP package, I think you can still get a 50% discount. And that's everything we do. Everything we do, every sport we do, every article, every ranking, every Discord room, every video, every live stream, all of it. Send a note to support at FantasyGuru.com. Say, I want the all-in VIP package. Tell me I get 50% off because Jeff Manns said it. Well, Ray said it too. Jeff Manns said it. Send a note in, support at FantasyGuru.com. Get everything we do year-round at a 50% discount. Pretty cool. What are we talking about on the show today? Well, there it is on the screen. MLB Top-10 Lists. I got all kinds of rankings over at FantasyGuru.com. By the way, the rookie scouting report for pitchers came out today. So that's about 3,000 words talking about pitchers. There was more. I ended up about 3,000 words on pitchers, 4,000 words on hitters, something roughly like that. There were just more guys at the top this year on the hitting side of things. Not to say that there won't be pitchers, of course, that will emerge. They will. But anyway, the rookie scouting reports are posted today. The rookie hitter reports will be posted tomorrow. And then on Sunday, the big one, the reveal of the top 50 rookies for 2025 in the fantasy game. This list is obviously different than if you're looking at MLB Pipeline or something like that, because we're talking just about fantasy, just about this season. So a guy like Jacob Wilson of the Athletics is higher in the rankings than he is universally as a prospect, because we're not worried about the future. We're not worried about we're talking about in 2025. That list, by the way, will be updated as needed. It's not that it just goes up now and then I never touch it again. Someone gets hurt. We get news that, that Roman Anthony's going to make the Red Sox. Well, okay, we'll change the rankings. So all of that comes out the next couple of days, today, tomorrow, and again on Sunday with the rookie rankings. We do have a lot of other rankings too over at the site. We've got hitter rankings, pitcher rankings, auction values, AL only, NL only, mixed league, dynasty league rankings, points league rankings, hitter category rankings, pitcher category rankings, on-base percentage rankings, dependability grades, power grades, speed grades, on and on and on. We got an MLB Top 10 List article too. So we'll talk a little bit about that today here on the show. You can see a bunch of other names there. Scherzer and Kim have signed with clubs, so we'll talk about that. Chisholm and Bellinger got some clarity on their positions. Mountcastle might be on the move. Jorge Polanco did make a decision on where to play, and it's not the Astros. Eury, Perez, Reid, Detmers updates there. About 25, 30 minutes, we'll talk to Mr. Russell J. Clay, for those of you looking to be official. Russell J. Clay on Twitter and X. Russell comes in every Friday. We're going to talk a little bit of best ball. We talked best ball with yesterday, if you missed it, Make sure you check that out, episode 326 with Tyler Beaker. We spent a good 10 minutes talking about best ball. If you're one of these people that are addicted to drafting, you're addicted to football, and you want to do drafts in January for next season, best ball. Check out episode 326 yesterday. Tyler and I spent time on that. I'll ask Russell what his thoughts are on the best ball today, and then we'll talk about a bunch of players who have contract situations to deal with or new coaching situations that have come into the play. Maybe there's age or injury that are, basically a bunch of players that we're trying to get an assessment moving forward. What does Russell think? He's our dynasty guy at fantasyguru.com. So we'll ply his brain or pick his brain. We're not gonna ply his brain. We'll pick his brain and get a little bit better understanding of what we're trying to do. By the way, before we dive into the top 10 and all of that, remember, fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, get signed up for any and all of our products that we have at the site. Also, remember that you can watch this show and listen to the show for free. You're here with us right now, watching live for free. If you're watching live, you can leave comments and questions that we'll address throughout the show. You can always go to fantasyguru.com, click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. That'll get you the podcast form. You can type in Fantasy Sports Daily to your podcast network. That'll get you the podcast form. You can watch the show and ask those questions live or even on demand at Fantasy Guru's site on Twitter X, at facebook.com/fantasyguruhq, and on YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. All of those places allow you the ability to get involved. And Angelo's getting ahead of the game. Eury Perez has screwed me too many times. We'll talk about Eury Perez, the potential superstar who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. All right, so we have top 10 lists, and I used to call this rankings. So for those of you that have always enjoyed that article every year, that's what this is. I changed it to top 10 list to try to get some eyeballs on it because, again, people see top 10 and it's kitty litter for kittens, right? And this is basically a list of top 10s, and I pulled a couple of them out of the article. The article's got probably half the article is actionable data for fantasy in 2025, and half of it's just fun stuff. So let's make a change here to what was shown on the screen. Let's fix that. Let's click on that. So there we go. So here's an example of 4 of the top 10s. We'll talk about them a little bit before diving into the player information. And you can see at the bottom there, the other categories, the more topical ones for the fantasy game that I'm not showing here, because again, you need to subscribe to fantasyguru.com. That top 10 list includes the best power bats, cheap steal sources, potential breakout players, best middle relievers, players to avoid, players to target, all that kind of stuff. So that's in the article. So that's the nuts and bolts. And hell, I must really like power because I put power twice. Probably because I'm thinking about writing a power article for the website. So yeah, you know how these things go. They infect your brain a little bit. By the way, since we're talking about the website, next week, starting on Monday, after the rookies run through the weekend, the plan is to go the solds and closer chart on Monday, matrix of leadership for hitters and pitchers. Really encourage people to look at that. That's a distillation of a whole bunch of skills that players flashed last year, performances that they flashed last year, who qualified, who can we remove, who over a myriad of topics was at least league average or if not better than that. So we'll talk about those players. Talk about CSW. What is CSW? Why do people talk about CSW? How do you utilize CSW in the fantasy space? That'll be up next week. Building the perfect hitter and pitcher as we continue the idea of taking a whole bunch of categories, putting them together and seeing what's left. And it's great if a guy has power, or if a guy has speed, or if a guy strikes out players, or if a guy doesn't walk guys, or if a guy gets ground balls. All these things are great, but you want the guy that strikes guys out, that doesn't issue walks, that gets ground balls. You want the guy that doesn't strike out, that has the power, et cetera, et cetera. So that's matrix of leadership, building the perfect player. Those are the kind of things we're going to drill down on next week at the site. We'll also have the history of the first round. Write this every year. Talk about this every year. We're not as good as we think in the first round, so we'll discuss that. And then finally, I've done in the past, should we remove wins? Which you should. Should we remove stolen bases? Maybe. Should we remove batting average? Yes. So I've done articles like that. I haven't written those yet. I don't know if I'm going to get to them this year or not. But I wanted to add the article that I also add when I've always said if I'm taking these things away, I got to add something back. What are the categories we could add in fantasy? So that article will also be out next week, even if I don't get around to writing the articles of let's get rid of all these categories. Welcome to discuss those things with you all, though, of course. As you can see down on the screen, best ballparks. And at Oracle Park, I am biased because it's what's here in California, in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. But I remember the first time I went there, I grew up at Candlestick, which was they used to get the quad candle, stick away the little pin on your hat because you were smart enough or dumb enough to stay through an extra inning game where the fog was rolling in and it was freezing ass and the wind. And so going to Oracle Park was like, wow. A lot of khakis, a lot more khakis at Oracle Park than there were at Candlestick. I think some of the hardcore Giants fans, I don't know if they got priced out or whatever, but they didn't all necessarily transfer over to the new park. But it's been around for a while now. Still just a beautiful location. They've gentrified the neighborhood, so there's all kinds of stuff around the stadium to do too. So just a beautiful park. Wrigley and Fenway. My brother and I went to Wrigley. Let me remember. We went to Fenway. No, we went to Wrigley alone. We went to Wrigley alone. We went to Fenway with my dad. It was like the last trip we took. My dad was disabled, so it was hard for him to travel. But it was like the last trip the three of us took together. We still did some family things, with my mom and stuff. But the last trip my brother, myself, and my dad took was to Fenway. Fenway and Wrigley, they're old and all of that, and they pose problems and issues. But just the history and the fact they're in the middle of the neighborhoods and everything, I love that. Petco Park is gorgeous down in San Diego. There are hotels you can actually see the park from out on the there's seating there. The weather's great, the vibe, all that kind of stuff. And you can see. By the way, Coors Field. My dad, my brother, and I went to Coors Field too. Really nice. It's it's kind of, it reminds me a lot of Petco without obviously the bay. I mean, obviously it reminds me of Oracle Park without the bay. But I remember being struck by Oracle Park is built up against the bay and there's not a lot of space, right? So everything's tight. You go to Colorado and like the concourse are huge. It's like they're twice as big as what we've got in San Francisco. I remember that specifically. But there's my list there. Age becoming an issue, and there's names that are obvious. Scherzer, who we'll talk about in a few minutes. Clayton Kershaw, Jacob deGrom, Justin Verlander, obvious names there. Players we wish had more playing time. You can't have that list without having Mike Trout, right? Byron Buxton, of course. Of course, Jacob deGrom. Hell, even Blake Snell. So you can see those lists there. And then there's fun stuff here, like best dating tips. And, I've been with my lady now for about a decade. Happy, we own a home together. We've got a cat and a dog, which I mentioned. We're doing great here. So, but I dated a lot back in the day. Actually, leading up to meeting her, I was doing the old internet dating thing where you have 3 dates a week kind of thing. So, in jest, I kind of said, these are some tips, and some of them are real. Some show up buzzed. Now don't drive, but show up buzzed. If you have a hard time talking, I'm not telling everyone you got to be drunk. Don't get drunk. There's a difference between having a beer or two and feeling good and having 4 beers and being sloppy. Don't do that. Okay. And don't drink 3 or 4 beers before and then have 3 or 4 beers at the date. Let's be smart about this. But showing up buzzed, not the worst idea. Be early, be on time at least, if not early. Got to do that in everything in life, but certainly dating. Bring an open mind. Maybe you'll meet the person and you'll learn things you weren't expecting. Maybe they don't look like you expected. Maybe you had that first impression. You bumped into them at a park. You said, let's meet each other. Then you sit down, you start talking to them, and it's like, be open-minded. You never know. Listen, be present. Bring gum, Tic Tac, something. You never know. Whether you're having a kiss at the end of the night, whether you're getting a little romantic, a little make sure your breath is okay. Don't talk about your ex. We've all done this, but don't do it. Don't talk about your ex, especially if your ex was a model or something. Don't do that. Pray that you don't run into your ex on your date. I had that happen once, and that ex was a model, so that was troublesome. Don't talk about banging. Depends on your date. Depends if she's drinking. Depends if she's buzzed. Depends if you go out for a nightcap. It depends if you're gonna bang. But don't talk about it 10 minutes into the date. All right. Have some class, right? And don't use the word banging. That's probably another way to do it. Listen. I talk a lot for a living, and again, I probably tend to lead a lot of my conversations, but there's other times where I just listen. You got to listen, okay? Especially on a date. Don't hit on someone else. Don't walk to the bathroom and start, hitting on the waitress. Don't, pick up the check. If you're looking to score, pick up the check. And then finally, use protection. So we all know what that means. Use protection. Don't be a fool. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of things on this list, including the ones we talked: best Major League video game, best baseball movie, MLB Comeback Player of the Year, best drinks, dream jobs, favorite formats in fantasy, most durable players, players to target and avoid. I'm just realizing, I think I doubled up. I did double up something here. I got to make a change to that. Yeah, you never know. I'm the editor too, and sometimes I don't edit my own work. So anyway, there we go. So that's so we have some fun over at fantasyguru.com. Again, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Join us, have some fun. Let's see here. Angela said, if you Google her name, and she's listed as a Dutch prostitute, she was famous in the 70s with her Happy Hooker book. Angela also said, trim your fingernails. That's a good one. I used to bite my fingernails, which was unattractive. Now I haven't bit my fingernails in about 2 years, which for somebody who bit their fingernails for 35 years, I deserve a lot of credit there. There we go. And Doug mentions Kezar Stadium. Yeah, my dad actually, and I was talking to a friend last night. My family's from the Bay Area. My dad saw the Giants' first game at Kezar Stadium. He saw the first game at Candlestick. Saw the last game at Candlestick. Saw the first game at Oracle Park, whatever the hell it was called then. We were at the 1989 Loma Prieta game, October 17th at 5:04 when the earthquake hit. We were at that game. We were at the All-Star game. Like, my dad saw everything with the Giants here, including Kezar Stadium. We're going old school. All right, let's talk some baseball right now. After the fun intro, again, about 15, 20 minutes away from Russell Clay joining to talk with us some football. Max Scherzer signed with the Blue Jays, and this one's intriguing because it's kind of weird, right? Like, I would think if I'm Max Scherzer, like there's teams that would pay Max Scherzer, right? Maybe it'd be $10 million. He doesn't need the money. Like, let's be honest. Is Toronto going to win? Now, Toronto is a beautiful city. It's multicultural. Maybe he wants to get out of the United States because of politics. I don't know. It's weird, though, from a winning perspective. You would think with all the money and fame and Hall of Fame and all this stuff that Max Scherzer's got, he'd want to go somewhere where he felt really confident about his ability to win a World Series. That would be my guess. Now, again, goals are totally different for everyone. And anyway, he's going there. He's getting $15.5 million. He still is very effective. He basically had a strikeout an inning last year. He still had a 4-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. His whip was 115. All these are really good numbers. And I would anticipate that Scherzer would yet again be very effective. Now, the problem is that he only threw 43 innings last year, and he's over 40 years old, right? So, you spend $3-4 on Scherzer in an auction in a mixed league. You take him as your 6-7 starting pitcher. I would take that chance, just like I did last year. I think it was it Tout Wars? It was Tout War Labor, FSGA. It was one of the 3 ones, the public leagues, where I took Scherzer in the 24th round, 5th round, something like that. I'm like, I took the chance, and it didn't work last year. But I still think at this point of a draft, it's worth taking a chance. And other people, there's ways to spend that draft pick. You could take that rookie down on the farm and wait. You could take Max Scherzer. It all depends how your team is put together and what your goals are. But I think Scherzer is draftable in a mixed league. I think it is unfortunate that he went to the AL East because obviously that's not a good place to pitch. Some tough teams, some tough ballparks. So, on balance, at the end of the day, if Scherzer throws 140 innings, he'll be fine. Is it going to be 140 innings or 60? That's the real question with Max Scherzer. Now, the Rays are raying. They added a guy who can play multiple positions, who's got a little bit of pop, certainly has speed, and that's Ha-Seong Kim, formerly of the Padres. Kim signed a 2-year contract worth $29 million. It's a pretty good deal for a guy who had shoulder surgery and is not going to be ready for the start of the season. And there have been moments in Kim's career. I'm starting to get cold. I wish this window was closed. Maybe I will put my beanie on. All right, I'm doing it. We're putting the beanie on. Looks a little funny. Let me see. Push it down. There we go. Russell Clay's going to have a field day with me when I get my... Can't even get this on right. That's definitely not on right. There we go. I don't look like a total buffoon. Just only a partial buffoon. All right, what temperature is it? It's 52 degrees. It just got warmer outside, but it's the window. It's not good. Anyway, pretty good deal for Kim. And, come back from the injury with the shoulder. There have been moments in his career where he's been really good offensively. And then there's, been other moments like last year where he's kind of just a guy. Does steal bases. The Rays have no reason to avoid playing him on a daily basis when he's healthy. He should continue to run. I think it's reasonable to look at his rates last season, like on a per game plate appearance basis, and say he could do that again this year with the Rays. The question is just how much time he's going to miss. He had that labrum surgery. Labrum. I know all about this. Labrum surgery in August. and probably going to miss a month. That's kind of the guesstimate. We'll see. It's kind of the guesstimate right now. So, if you have an IR spot, you can draft him late and stash him. If you don't have an IR spot, AL only is fine, right? Of course. But in the mixed league, if you don't have the IL spot, you can't be doing it. If you're in a head-to-head league, you won't be doing that either. What are the Yankees going to do? Well, as of right now, the Yankees lineup is going to include Cody Bellinger in center field and Jazz Chisholm at second base. Now, the Yankees are said to still be in the market for a third baseman. Now, they could fill this position internally. They could make a trade. It doesn't sound like they're involved with the Alex Bregman situation. As of right now, Oswaldo Cabrera is their third baseman. So the idea would be that Jazz Chisholm will play second base. Now, if they make a move on the market, maybe Chisholm doesn't play second base. Like that still has to be in consideration here. So basically, they'd have Goldschmidt at first base, because remember, Paul Goldschmidt went to the Yankees. Goldschmidt at first base, Chisholm at second base, Volpe at third, Volpe at short, Cabrera at third. So Cabrera's the weak link in the offense, and certainly in the infield. And then the outfield would be Judge, Bellinger, Dominguez, with Giancarlo Stanton at the DH. That's a really good lineup. I mean, Dominguez, who could go 2020 this year, and again, we'll write about him tomorrow in the rookie scouting reports, and he'll be in the top 50 on Sunday. He might hit 8th. That's a pretty good lineup. But they really need a third baseman. Having Bellinger in the outfield, he can obviously play first base if they need him to be. The real problem for the Yankees is that they have Stanton, and he just clogs up the DH spot because he can't play the outfield. He's just not. Now, the good news is, bad news for Yankees, good news for the players, is that there's no way that Stanton's not going to get hurt at some point. And then things change dramatically. Then we probably get a little bit more Trent Grisham or DJ LeMahieu or something else. So we'll see. But right now, it seems like, Jazz will move into second base, the former purview of Gleyber Torres, who, if you didn't see that, Gleyber Torres is now with the Tigers. So that player movement there caused the situation here. So we'll see. But at the end of the day, it would be intriguing with Chisholm if he were to play second base, even for a while, because last year he played in the outfield 97 times. He played third base 45 times. And then depending upon what your qualifications are, is it 5 games in season, 10, 15, 20? Are you in some stupid league where it's 1? Do you play at a place called Shmamamu that sounds like Shmamamu? That probably already has him qualifying at second base, even though he doesn't play there last year. Well, he actually played there 3 times. He probably does qualify there. Bottom line is Chisholm could have 3 positions. 3. If Chisholm stays healthy, he's hitting 20 home runs and stealing 30 bases. And he could qualify at second base, third base, and outfield. That's huge. So it's actually good news, kind of like the Jose Altuve, if Altuve moves the outfield. Like, we really want to play these guys at second base, third base, infield. We don't really want to use them in the outfield, but depending upon how your draft goes and depending upon how your injuries play out, it's fantastic to have that bonus. Why can't I get my beanie right? A little knob on the top of my head. That looks a little bit better. There we go. All right. It's tough when you don't have hair, folks. You lose 10 to 15% of your heat from your head. I don't have any hair to keep my... So, yeah. And, oh, by the way, you're right, Angelo. Bichette needs to step up. Yeah, last year was a disaster. Been tough to figure out how to rank him this year, too, because last year was so bad. I still, he's Bo Bichette. He's been really good. He's still in the prime age. I'm looking for a rebound. The question is just how far is that rebound going to come? Moving on from the Yankees, the Mets, the other team in New York. They've got Ryan Mountcastle. And I said this wrong. They're targeting or thinking about targeting Ryan Mountcastle of the Orioles because, as we know, Pete Alonso to the Mets still makes a ton of sense. Maybe it will still happen, but we've heard a lot of negativity, obviously, from the Mets side. That Cohen, the owner, said, I just don't like this. I don't like the way the negotiations are going. I don't feel this. So when the owner is out publicly saying, does Alonso cave or change his demands? Because, again, we're getting close here. It's February 1st tomorrow. And as we've talked about on the show already this year, and we talked about it a lot last year too, because of the situations with Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. We talked earlier this week about Alex Bregman. Here's another scenario with, Pete Alonso. These guys got to sign. You don't want to go and have camp start and not be with the team. For all the off-the-field reasons, where are you going to live? Where's your family going to be? How's that going to work? I got to get comfortable where I'm living. I got to get comfortable getting to the park, all these kind of things. There's also the on-the-field stuff. How do you gel with your teammates, right? That's big. That's really, are you comfortable with your teammates? You know, when you've been there with the guys and you've gone through the battles and the wars, you have a bond, a connection. Not going to have this if he's with a new team. So he's got to get in there early and create those bonds and connections. Then most obviously, there's a difference between hitting in a cage or having your buddy throw you pitches at the local high school field than being out there in a major league diamond. You know, there's a difference. So got to get Bregman, Alonso signed. Bottom line is the Mets have to make plans here, and they have. We've talked about this. Mark Vientos is likely to play first base if they don't make a move. You'll then have Beatty and Acuna and Mauricio kind of battling for the third base spot. Maybe Batty will play a little bit of a platoon thing at first with Vientos too. That's possible. But they're interested, are the Mets, in getting Ryan Mountcastle, because there's nothing wrong with getting another bat. Even if they mix and match all these things together, Alonso's a 38 home run, 90 RBI guy. I'm just making those numbers up. He's a 40-100 guy. Mark Vientos was really good last year, and maybe he'll be really good this year. But if Mark Vientos becomes Alonso, just for the sake of argument, right? Let's say Mark Vientos goes 40-100 this year. Who's going to step in and go, 30-80 like Vientos is expected to do? It ain't going to be Beatty. It's not going to be Acuna. It's not going to be Mauricio. Could it be Ryan Mountcastle? It could be Ryan Mountcastle. That's the kind of game Ryan Mountcastle has. Now he's not young. He's not dynamic. He doesn't have a good on-base percentage. Like, there's holes in his game, which is obviously why he'd be available if you're the Orioles. But it's something to think about. He's what is he, 28? How old is Ryan Mountcastle? He's 27. Geez, he's 27 years old. Seems old, though, right? And certainly doesn't seem like part of the youth movement there in Baltimore. And the Orioles always looking for pitching. Maybe they make a move there too with the Mets. Bottom line is Mountcastle is somebody who would be added to play first base, so he can play the outfield a little bit. Interesting. Spencer Torkelson's another guy that the Mets, if you're the Mets, do you pay $200 million, $300 million to Pete Alonso, or do you make a trade for Spencer Torkelson and Ryan Mountcastle? You might only get half, 2/3 the production you get of Alonso, but the cost is nothing. So we'll see what the Mets do. Mountcastle and Torkelson, two names that they're kind of circling if they finally decide that they're just out on Pete Alonso. Now, we talked about Jorge Polanco earlier this week, and maybe last week too on the show. And he's a very interesting player because he does two things. He gets that signing, and he has this position change coming, like we we're just talking about with Chad Chisholm. Ken Rosenthal's reporting that the Mariners have signed Jorge Polanco. Obviously, he's been with the Mariners. He's going to go back to the Mariners. There was talk about it in the Astros, and he was kind of floating around. Polanco, at one point in time, was a 30-home run guy. He was looked at as a very stable offensive player. He's dealt with some injuries the last couple of years, getting a little bit older. Obviously, no excitement for his services. He's going to make $7.8 million this year, $750,000 in bonuses that he could earn. So it's not a very big contract. It's a one-year deal, so he gets the freedom. If he hits 30 home runs this year, he'll get a bigger contract next year. He's going to play third base according to what they're currently talking about here. And that, again, that is a reason to get excited is not the right word. It's a reason to be interested in an AL-only league with Polanco. The mixed league, we're not in. But the idea is that, first base will be Luke Raley, who basically went 2010 last year. Dylan Moore, who's got holes in his game, but as we see every year, can steal a base. He could steal 30, 40 bases playing every day. Hills plays second base. Crawford's obviously the shortstop. That puts Polanco at third base. And, that they also signed Donovan Solano, who they can move around the infield. That's it. So this is a good team mix, good team signing. I'm getting very cold. Jeez. Is it 53? It's going to be 53 in this room before I'm done. Good signing, again, for Polanco and the Mariners. No one to get excited about. The injuries have beat him down a little bit. Does qualify at second base. Played 112 games there last year. Likely to play third base. Another one of those scenarios where he picks up a second position. That can be very important in an AL-only league in particular. So no one's going to be saying, I got to get me some Jorge Polanco, that 31-year-old nobody. Keep that in mind if you're doing an AL-only league. He's not a bad target late because of that position flexibility. Next up is Eury Perez, who I heard Angelo say earlier on that he's not a fan of. Eury Perez had the elbow injury, had Tommy John surgery. You weren't the only one, Angelo, that got bit by him. I had him in a league last year. I got bit. It's tough when you're my number one pitcher. Might have been my number 2 pitcher. I think I took him in the 5th or 6th round, and that didn't work out. Bottom line is he had Tommy John surgery in April last year, so he was a killer right off the top. But he seems to be getting better. He seems to be healthy. He seems to be moving in the right direction. At some point, he's going to be with the Marlins this season. When will that be? We don't know. He's throwing bullpen sessions now. I think it's reasonable to think we could see him in the first half of the season. Even if we do see him in the first half of the season, they're going to be very cautious with him. He had the surgery in April. 12 to 14 months is kind of generally what they want to do with the guys coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's 21 years old. He is the future of the franchise, so they're going to be cautious. I think it's a huge win if Eury Perez those 80 innings this year. It could be 50. So he's not someone that is high in the rankings at fantasyguru.com. If you're in a dynasty keeper league, totally different. If you're in a redraft league, Eury Perez is somebody that you only draft if you have like unlimited IL spots, right? You take him with your last pick, put him on the injured list right away week 1, you make a move on the waiver. That'd be the only scenario right now that we're drafting Eury Perez. There's just, unless you're in an NL league, then we can afford it. But in a mixed league, we just can't do it. And finally, before we talk to Russell Clay, the Angels basically signed Kyle Hendricks, and it's causing all kinds of problems. Kyle Hendricks is going to be in the rotation. I get it. He's trying to hang on and do whatever he can to maintain his big league career. He'll be in the rotation with Tyler Anderson, Yusei Kikuchi, who they signed, and Jose Soriano, who's got that huge arm. So that leaves Chase Silseth, Jack Kochanowicz, and Reid Detmers for that final spot. And Kochanowicz, I think, had 8 quality starts in his last 9 outings. I think I saw that the other day. 8 and 9 outings. He was spectacular down the stretch. He also though strikes out about as many guys as I would as if I was pitching in the big leagues. I don't know about Russell Clay. He's got a good fastball. But he strikes out about as many guys as I would as if I was pitching in the big leagues. So I have zero interest in Kochanowicz. Zero interest in the fantasy space. Tyler Anderson's an AL only play only. Reid Detmers is the one of the 3 that could be a mixed league option. I've been a fan of Detmers for years. We've been burned by Detmers for years. I can't tell anyone they got to draft Reid Detmers. He will be written about in this preseason. We've got an article coming up where we'll write about Reid Detmers and give my thoughts on Reid Detmers, which will basically be the following. I'm in because I can't give him up, but I'm not telling you to do anything. I hope that he ends up being the guy because, again, Kochanowicz and Silseth, who can't stay healthy. I don't think either one of those guys gives as much in the fantasy space if they get the spot. So Reid's the one we should all be cheering for, though, again, Reid Detmers has been up and down about 82 times the last 3 years. So there is that. All right, it's a Friday. And every Friday we talk to our man, Russell J. Clay. Not just Russell Clay, Russell J. Clay. It's kind of like Michael A. Taylor in baseball or Stephen A. Smith. You have to have that initial. Maybe I should be Stanley R. Flowers. Maybe I've blown it all these years by going by my middle name. I don't know. We'll see. But he's our man, Russell Clay. We talk to him every Friday here on the show, about halfway into the show, 12:30-ish Eastern Standard Time. So let's bring in Russell J. Clay. How you doing, Russell?
Honest question. Do I look more like a Russell or a Joseph? Because I feel like you're like a Ray.
Yeah, you think so?
But your name's actually Stanley.
Yeah. If you didn't hear the start of the show, I'm wearing this beanie because I had my window open for my cat. And literally the second I started, because he was talking to the squirrels, the second I started talking, he jumped out of the window and left the room. So, and I've got the window open. It's 53 degrees. The air is flying in and freezing. So that's it.
Purely self-torture over there.
Pretty much. I think Joseph, right? Is that what you think too?
Probably, right? If we're going with which I'm probably a Joe.
Maybe now you're not. You're too fancy for Joe. You got to be Joseph.
Joseph.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe we're both middle name guys. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Well, who knows? It's on Twitter X. It's Russell J. Clay.
Yeah.
Send
us your thoughts.
Yeah. Give us your thoughts. What does everyone think? Who does he look like? And don't say he looks like a Frank. Give us your thoughts in the chat room here. Who does Russell Joseph Levitt look like? What's his better name? We talked yesterday, Russell. Thanks for joining us today. We talked yesterday here on the show. We had Tyler Beaker on, and we spent a good 10 minutes talking about best ball for 2025.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And he's in. He's already done a draft.
Really?
Yep. He's going to have the rankings out the week after the Super Bowl. Like, he's in. And I can tell by your reaction, that doesn't seem to be something you're in on, huh?
I love that he's in.
Okay.
I'm rooting for him, and Tyler's a very bright man, so I'm
Good.
just going to copy off his homework
Okay.
until I get up to speed. Yeah.
Did you do a lot of best ball drafts in 2024? Was that something you were involved with heavily?
I did, but I didn't do them until later in the year.
Okay.
So, July, August, and so yeah, I did most of it around there. This time of year can be fun, but the wait time is very long. Your money's locked up for a long time, and I don't know. So I get it. It's fun.
I told him, and I said, look, I honestly don't know. I'm so into baseball. Like, the idea of drafting a football team in January is like mind blowing to me. So I asked him yesterday. For those people that missed it, it's episode 326. We had like a 10-minute discussion, some theory and strategy and all that. I didn't know, which is, I'm glad they do this, Russell, and I'm sure you know, that they actually have two different tournaments. So if you're drafting today, the tournament ends like at the NFL draft, and then they start like the second season of drafting. So you don't draft today and then face people that are drafting in August, which, because that was my question. It was like, well, that doesn't, I'm just going to draft in August, right? So they have two separate tournaments, I guess, basically. This is Underdog we were talking about. We do have the Underdog baseball rankings up right now over at fantasyguru.com. So we're going to do baseball Underdog. We got those covered at the site. Best ball. Yeah. Can you draft before the Super Bowl? Like, come on. Like, it just seems wrong to me, Russell.
Well, it's Ray, and we're seeing it in the Dynasty chat, right? People want to do their rookie drafts before the draft. And as I've said on this show before, Ego Russ in 2015 was like, I'm going to outdraft everyone. I don't need the NFL draft. And then I had like 3 or 4 guys who I was high on that went like undrafted. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should wait. Yeah, it is early, Sean, but what else are we going to do?
Well, you know what else we're going to do? We're going to talk to you about football in a dynasty perspective. So we're going to talk football, but we're going to move it toward next year. I want to ask some questions of some guys that are kind of, they have questions about their contracts or maybe age or injury. So just kind of a hodgepodge of kind of players that value could be changing in the dynasty scenario. Russell's our dynasty guy at fantasyguru.com. First, I want to talk to you about our first 2 guys, actually, are Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Chase wanted to get paid last year. He didn't, but he's going to get paid this offseason. Higgins didn't get paid last season. He's going to get paid this offseason. Now, the team is making some rumblings that they'd love to bring both guys back. Of course they would. My sense is T. Higgins will go to New Zealand if they pay him the most money. That's my sense. It's a money grab for T. Higgins. He wants to get paid. That's my sense. Could be totally wrong. It's very tough to envision both these guys being back with the Bengals. But talk us through T. Higgins and your thoughts there. Value with the Bengals. Would you feel better if he stayed? Could he go somewhere else and potentially get 140 targets? And then here we go. Like, what are your thoughts of the whole situation with the Bengals? This is a big move for the organization this offseason.
Having watched the NFL the last couple years, there has been a shift towards, I won't say no names, but when you look at that Bills team, Khalil Shakur was the clear wide receiver 1, but they had like 5 guys, and they had, Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman. And the Bengals already have the quarterback. They have their ace in Jamar Chase. I don't know why they'd spend that money on another receiver when I believe Joe Burrow could make a lot of guys look really, really good. So I do think T. Higgins is awesome. They're going to miss him outside if they do let him go, but if they get some slot guy, why can't that guy get 100 catches and 1,200 yards with Joe Burrow? So that's my perspective. They need help so many other places. I would fire off somewhere else. But yeah, Chase is the man. And beyond Burrow and Chase, what do you really need at this point? You
ever get called RJ growing up, by the way?
Never RJ. I did. You'll love this one.
Okay.
At basketball camp, I did get called Russell Branyan. So
were you tall back then?
No.
Oh, okay. Because Russell Brandon was tall. He was like 6'3", 4", I think. Right?
Oh, no. I was, Ray, I was probably average height until around 5th grade. And then it was kind of like the stocks. It's like the stocks are going up. It's like, where are my returns this year?
Well, I grew up, not that anyone cares, but I was always like the tallest kid.
Yeah.
And so I was advanced physically. So I was a good athlete growing up and everything like that. But it really got me in basketball because I was always the power forward or the center. Right? Because I was big too. I was a big kid.
Oh, not always a fun place to be.
Yeah, I didn't mind. It was what I did. So it was fine. And that was great until about 15, 16, when everyone else started growing too. And then you start realizing that, okay, I'm 6'3", 4". Like the best case scenario for me in basketball is shooting guard, right? I can't play shooting guard. I have no idea how to play. I can't hit a shot from 22 feet. So it's like, it got to the point, but it was a little later for me where it's like, in basketball, baseball is different. But in basketball, it's like, I've been playing down in the paint my whole life, and now I got to go up at the 3-point line. So my dream died there pretty quick, Russell. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Now a dream that isn't dead yet. I'm telling you, it's not dead yet, Russell. Okay. Trevor Lawrence, is he back in your good graces? We talk about him all the time. Liam Cohen, Brian Thomas, Trevor Lawrence going to the moon in 2025.
We stick with our convictions here at fantasyguru.com. And while my actual belief is waning, I'm riding or dying with Trev till the end here. We've had one high streak in year 2, and the rest has all been terrible. But this Liam Cohen thing, I'm in. He's hilarious. He's a goof, but you can tell he knows football. Former college quarterback. Seems like they're building a nice little staff there in Jacksonville. And I always believed in Trevor's talent. I actually think, as much as we all don't like Trent Baalke, I kind of think he did put some nice weapons there. They brought in Brian Thomas. They have Christian Kirk. They have Evan Ingram. Mm-hmm. So, and even Travis Etienne when he's healthy, that's a pretty good setup. So they're not too far away. We saw what Cohen did for Baker and Tampa Bay this year. I'm in. I think it's going to work. You either go one way or the other, right, Ray, with a coach. It's either Dan Campbell, former player, like, gritty, or you go with the nerdy, whatever guy. And that's what they went with. I'm really excited. Still, dynasty ratings wise, cautiously optimistic. Can't put him ahead of a guy like Jaden Daniels right now, just because of what Jaden Daniels has already accomplished in year 1. CJ Stroud as well, much more accomplished at this point, even not fantasy wise, but they're locking in that long-term floor because of their accomplishments. Beyond that, I'm rooting for Trev. Come on, baby. What do you think? I'm super duper uber biased. So
Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com admits his bias, at least. You have to be aware of that. Look, I think that we judge, I don't think that Trevor Lawrence is ever going to be a generational quarterback like some people thought.
Yeah.
We also just saw, Baker Mayfield throw for 40 touchdowns. And I'm not saying it's because of Liam Cohen, but I'm saying, guys can come around later in their careers. And a lot of guys that started out kind of ho-hum, the Derek Carrs and Geno Smiths of the world end up making a lot of money and being NFL quarterbacks for a long time. Lawrence has got the huge contract, so he's locked in the lineup unless he's injured. He's never coming out of the lineup. You mentioned they have weapons around him. They have a head coach now that I think should help pull the best out of him. I think he could be a Phillip Rivers kind of quarterback. He could throw for 4,229 touchdowns a season, that kind of thing. And that seems very reasonable to me. You're nodding your head like you think that's reasonable too.
My comp, I was thinking like Eli.
Yeah.
Eli is such a funny guy because most of his career we were all crapping on him, but he had those 2 amazing Super Bowl runs. Mm-hmm. So, and he had a few really good fantasy seasons. Overall, though, his regular seasons were never. We're not looking at, the Peyton or Tom Brady anymore for Trev. We're looking at can you do a Joe Flacco-y,
Right.
Can you do a Phil Rivers, Eli, fall into that? So that's what we're looking for.
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com joins us every Friday. Brian Thomas was huge as a rookie. We've talked about him previously. Obviously, he's somebody that now with Liam Cohen and those storylines, his ADP is going to be through the moon. There was a report that came out yesterday. They were talking, or I guess they were talking to Liam Cohen, and Liam mentioned that, Brian Thomas is really good out of the slot. And you get the sense that, hey, we tend to think of slot guys as, 5'11", 190, right? Or in the case of Wendell Robinson, 4'3", 106, whatever he is. We think of those little jitterbug kind of guys that are quick and Brian Thomas, you think he's going to be utilized more out of the slot? What does that mean? And these changes we're talking about with Cohen coming in, are you even more excited about Thomas than you were a week ago?
I'm not going to say Brian Thomas is in the Julio skill set range, but I could see a role like that emerging based on how he played last year. I mean, hell, he had 1,200 yards in year one with Mac Jones for a lot of the second half of the year. So keeping that in mind, I'm very excited about this. The one thing I will say, when Trevor Lawrence was quarterbacking the team, it was much more distributed, and that's historically how he's always been. So while Mac Jones is significantly worse, he was just willing to say, okay, I stink. I'm just going to throw it to Brian Thomas every time. And that worked. It worked pretty good for him. So I don't think Trevor does that, but Liam did have Chris Godwin. He did have Mike Evans. So he has a good setup for how to use Brian Thomas going forward. So he's going to be fine. What the ceiling is unclear, but it's very exciting.
Terry McLaurin reached his ceiling last year. Like, I know he's been really good. He's caught passes from 47 different quarterbacks. He's produced every year. Last season, he had his best season, double-digit touchdowns, all of that. We got a report suggesting he's looking for a contract extension. Makes all the sense in the world. He'll be 30 years old this year, so you got to factor that in. They have to work something out with Terry McLaurin. There's no option there, right? They have to do that. Who is Terry McLaurin moving forward? Again, 30 is not old, but you're starting to get to that point, and we have 13 touchdowns this year. That's not an easy number to replicate. Who's Terry McLaurin in 2025?
Terry McLaurin's been one of the most consistent wide receivers in the NFL, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Every year he's going to land in that 1,000 to 1,100 yard range, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Yep.
The 13 touchdowns this year was really nice. Clearly the Jaden Daniels thing is going to lengthen his career. But yeah, this looked like the ceiling to me. 13 touchdowns is tough to top. He's a fantastic wide receiver. Fantasy wise though, he's never been a high volume guy, and he was even less of a volume guy this year. He actually had the second least targets of his career in 2024. So I think we're right around what we're going to be getting. So I wouldn't expect it to progress from here, but still could get a few more years of this.
Will Levis, on paper, has a lot of talent. In terms of his game results, really not good. And there hasn't been, has there been any growth? Like, I don't know if there's been any growth. And he was beat up physically too. He's going to work with Jordan Palmer, which is an independent quarterback coach, which I think makes sense. Let's see if he can unlock some of these skills. We'll probably head into camp saying, oh, he had a great offseason and he changed all this stuff. What do we got with Will Levis here? I mean, it's still possible the Titans draft a quarterback in round one anyway, and it doesn't matter. But is Will Levis a career backup, or could he be a starter in this league?
Will Levis was like the toy that was pretty, like, when you had no other toys, they were pretty cool. Before the 2024 class came in, it was like, yeah, Will Levis. It's like, all right, we'll give it a shot. And now after we've seen Caleb and Jaden Daniels and, all these other guys and these other young guys developing, it's kind of like, yeah, we'll throw him in the Malik Willis bucket. Maybe he can go develop somewhere. Malik Willis, by the way, I know this is kind of a side note here, but he looked great in his reps in Green Bay this year. So maybe Will Levis can go sit behind a really good quarterback or sit behind a good organization and learn. he was so not ready this year, not even close. So I don't know if he ever develops, and he's probably never going to be a long-term starter, but I could see him reemerging somewhere,
Mark Andrews, started out slowly and then the end, double-digit touchdowns. He scored every week in the second half of the season, basically, right? You can argue he's the number one pass catcher this year, even though Zay Flowers. All right. The Ravens are reassessing everything, including their kicker, who apparently is a pervert. But Mark Andrews, there's a report from the Athletic suggesting that the Ravens, because of financial reasons, because of age, and obviously because of Isiah likely, might move on from Mark Andrews. Moving on from players is not easy in the NFL. You have cap money and dead cap this, and trades are difficult and all of that. So it's a really difficult question. And, there's also Mark Andrews dropping the ball at the goal line, at the end of it. So maybe they're trying to get him out for that reason. Mark Andrews in any offense can still be an effective tight end, right? But you think that your opinion of him would change dramatically if he wasn't with the Ravens? Do you just feel so good about Andrews because he's in that system and because he knows Lamar Jackson and all that there's only a handful of other systems in football that you would be looking at him and still thinking he can be a top-end tight end in 2025?
I've always liked Andrews. This year was strange from the beginning. He's only had 130 targets the last 2 seasons. So I don't know. It feels they were already moving on a little bit this year, right? It did kind of have that vibe to it. So that's what I'll say there. Andrews, 30 years old, not a death sentence for a tight end. We've seen Zach Ertz have multiple new lives, in Arizona and now in Washington this year. So certainly possible. A team will find use for him, but, having the years to look back on, it's pretty clear that 2021 season was the peak there. And we're not getting back to that probably ever again. He had 107 catches, 1,300 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That's way different than anything else we've seen in his career. So I do want to laugh and say, Angelo, once you see Bo Nix, Will Levis, not doing much for you anymore, right?
Right. Well, a guy that brings up, we'll talk about some running backs before we let you go here today, Russell. Isiah Pacheco, for me, I love watching him play because he runs hard and angry, right? He just does. Knees are up and he's just running. Now, he doesn't weigh 240 pounds like Derrick Henry, so there was always the questions about durability. He obviously broke his leg this year, and whether he's at full strength or not. We're talking about him coming back from an injury, and, Kareem Hunt, who's on his last legs, kind of dominating the touches in this backfield down the stretch in the playoffs, going into the Super Bowl. Where are we at with Pacheco? Because Hunt, they could bring Hunt back next year, but you know what Kareem Hunt is. It's 3.5 yards. And Pacheco, is there anything left? Is this he came back too early from his leg injury? Is he a good guy to buy on the down low? Andy Reid's running back always has success. The Chiefs don't want to throw the ball anymore 43 times a game. Like, it seems like there's a lot to like with Pacheco, but they're all also negatives with Isiah Pacheco.
This is generally how it goes for undrafted players. They have a few good years and then it's over. Chris Carson, one of the better later round picks of the last decade, lasted a long time for a late round pick, but eventually the injuries and other stuff, and they started to move on and in Seattle, and that's starting to feel what it looks like. The Chiefs signed Kareem Hunt off the street. Mm-hmm. And now he's, Kareem Hunt, nobody's confusing Kareem Hunt with prime Kareem Hunt anymore. And he's still got the role, I'm guessing mostly because he knows the playbook and knows the assignments. That's a really bad sign for Pacheco and his future. I think next year he'll get a fresh start, but they're going to bring somebody in for sure.
Jonathan Taylor had 12 touchdowns, ran for over 100 yards a game this season.
Yeah.
And no one's talking about him. No one likes him. No one believes in him. They're going to say, well, yeah, but it was only the last handful of games. Don't care, folks. He had 12 touchdowns and he ran for 1,400 yards in 14 games, with a terrible offense, with a quarterback who had no idea what he was doing half the time. Are we sleeping on Jonathan Taylor in a dynasty league? I know he's been in the league for 5 years and all that, but it just seems like no one is realizing this dude ran for 100 yards a game this year.
Yeah, I think the stank from Anthony Richardson is
Infecting
shifting to make it like no, you don't want anybody on that offense. They just cross it off.
Right.
But yeah, he was excellent this year. 26 years old, so he's not, this is the range where you start to see it, but this is definitely worth a risk in a startup or something like that. You could get a couple really, really nice years out of Taylor there. We know the talent's there. Generally speaking, the talent on the offense is there. They just have gone a half decade to a decade without figuring out quarterback.
Yeah, because Andrew Luck retired. That's what happens when you're a quarterback of the future or the greatest quarterback. You were all in on Andrew Luck at the time, right? He was your Trevor Lawrence before Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, right. 2 in a row, man.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we got to see it with Luck.
Right.
We got to see the playoff wins, but yeah, that was real rough. Yep.
I think we've talked about Joe Mixon before. I'm sorry if I've asked you directly before, but it's all runs together for me, Russ. I'm sorry. I want to ask you about him because everyone on the offensive, they're changing coaches with the Texans, and everyone's focused on the injuries to Diggs and Dell and the pullback of Stroud. But then here's Joe Mixon, who, despite everything, ran for 1,000 yards, had double-digit touchdowns, helped out in the passing game. Is he the new I got to get running back too? Like, is he still there, or is it he's going to be approaching 10 seasons in the league and all of these touches and it's 4 yards a carry and he doesn't break, where is Joe Mixon heading into 2025 for you?
You know where I'm at with the 2017 running back class?
Where?
Leave me alone.
Oh,
go away.
Okay.
Stop it. Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, McCaffrey, James Conner, Hunt. These guys will not go away, Ray. They just
won't.
keep plugging away.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like it from a single running back class before. Like this many guys lasting until their 30s.
Right.
So I don't have a good answer for all these guys. You're supposed to do the Leonard Fournette, have a few good years and leave me alone.
Right.
These guys are not. And Joe Mixon looked great this year. So it doesn't look like he's done yet either. So yeah, they're going to keep getting cheaper in redraft leagues because they're older, and why not keep firing away? Look at James Conner this year. It's crazy. So,
I mean, Joe Mixon has 500 carries and 20 rushing touchdowns the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey would love I mean, it's and James Conner's another perfect example. And they have both Conner and Mixon have one thing in common too. It's that when they're healthy, they're it, right? They're getting 80% of the touches out of the backfield. They're it. And that means that, on a bad week, it's 15 touches, and on a good week, it's 23. And there's so much value to that. I mean, it's why Najee Harris stinks every year and is running back 19 at the end of the season, because you get your 18 touches every week. Connor is interesting to me because Mixon's had some health injuries too, but he's been more stable year to year. Connor's been more of the, I'm always banged up, I'm always in and out of the lineup, but the production on a per game basis with him, to your point, Russell's really good.
Yeah. And the funny thing is all these organizations are moving on, right? Like the Bengals moved on, the Cardinals drafted Trey Benson, and then these guys just are like, no, let's keep going. And they're like, okay.
We'll keep doing it. That damn 2017 class. Con! Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a Star Trek reference for those people. I guess Russell got it, so that's good. Are you a Star Trek guy?
It's a good meme. I've seen the meme.
Oh, do you know the movie and the whole?
I've seen bits and pieces. Okay. I'm not a Star Trek like knowledgeable person. No.
You're not a Star Wars guy either, right?
I've seen them. I dated a girl a few years ago, and she was horrified to find out I hadn't seen Star Wars before. So she made me watch them all.
But like on a weekend, or did you spread it out?
It was like a 2-week period. She was like, get this done or this is going to be a problem.
Did you watch them together, or did you have to watch them solo and then report back?
There was one that came out in like 2020.
Yeah,
we saw in the theaters, but the other was like go do this.
You had homework?
Go figure your shit out, Russ.
Russell J. Clay of fantasyguru.com. Did you get a haircut recently, or just your hair's always, I can't tell. It looks really short.
Probably a few weeks ago, I think.
You get like every 3 or 4 weeks, just get a haircut?
We do it like once a month, or
Yeah.
else the sides get a little.
Keep it professional.
Yeah.
I realized the other day I had a wing. It's because my hair is short. You know, my hair is short, right? But it's like I usually keep it like this length, and I guess I got lazy and didn't cut it for like 3 weeks. And I had like a little choo.
Yeah.
And my gal was like, Ray, you're starting to look like the old guys that don't. I'm like, okay, I'll cut my hair. You know, it's like one of those things. Like I don't want to be like, oh, I'm trying to grow my hair out so I can put it on my bald spot. So yeah, I'm just jealous, basically, Russell. Russell intends to join us on Fridays here for the next couple of months at least. What do you got going on the weekend? You doing a lot of digging for Super Bowl? You kind of digging through the rankings? Like it's kind of a nebulous week of time right now for you, right?
It's a fun weekend. We're trending towards the Super Bowl. I've been checking out some of the prop bets Tyler and Jeff and all the fellows been putting in the Discord over on the sports betting channel. I've been, Ray, I've been thinking up maybe we can do a giveaway on here, a card giveaway or a pack opening one of these weeks to someone who's tuning in. Looking at you, Angelo, or David or Sean, you guys that are on here every week. The Senior Bowl was this week. Again, I like to say we're in the hang out and talk shop portion of the NFL draft season where I'm not locked into much other than I think this quarterback class is kind of mid. But come hang out in the Discord, throw out your thoughts, and we'll keep it vibing. And don't ask me about rookie picks right now. Don't ask Ray either. We don't know. But, I threw out a super flex rookie draft for fun, but it's like it's for fun,
Well, again, I have the coverage because I'm doing baseball. I've got 14 different rankings up over fan. I'm doing baseball. And I say this all the time, to be honest, I don't know nothing about college guys until they get drafted. I don't care. Yeah. I'm not, and because again, I need to know what team they're on, know what the role's going to be. That's when I start diving in. So yeah, if you have a dynasty question right now, I'm going to make these picks and you're going to have to ask Russell because I'm not involved. Russell doesn't want to answer the question, which I like. As we leave here, just a quick, and we'll get into this more, I'm sure, over the next couple months. Do you like the drafts? You're in a dynasty league, keeping our whole roster. We're in a dynasty league. Do you like the draft pick trading thing? Like people, it's all anyone does for 3 months, and they love it. And picks and pick. You don't know who's going to be available to pick. You don't know what team they're going to be on anyway. Like to me, it's crazy, but people love it, Russell.
So I loved it. And then the ultimate problem is these are valuable pieces that we're trading and nobody knows the value.
Right.
And so every trade affects the league, right? And if 3 or 4 of those trades end up being lopsided, then it causes problems. So I've shifted towards let's be careful more so than firing off, doing all these rookie pick trades. It is fun. Like the speculation aspect, it's like going and test driving a car, except the problem is then you accidentally sign the papers and now you have 3 leases and you're like, oh shit, I got to make all these payments now, Has
that ever happened to you? That sounds like a personal story, Russell. Okay.
Does that sound like personal experience?
A little bit. I don't know. Maybe that's why you go by your middle name. That's not me. That was my brother.
Yeah.
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. It's always fun, Russell. Thanks for stopping by with us on every Friday. We'll do it again next week. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk some Super Bowl with you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Ray.
He's Russell Clay. I'm Ray Flowers. Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com every day, Monday through Friday. We'll be back on Monday, of course, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We go about an hour every day. Head over to fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Get signed up with us, and we'll help you have success in 2025 in whatever sport you want to do. For Russell, I'm Ray. It's been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com. We'll see you on Monday.